Hello, everyone. It's me, John Olstik, analyst in residence at theCUBE, cybersecurity community activist and podcaster. Welcome to my podcast. If you haven't ever seen my podcast, I don't know where you've been, but each podcast of the Cybersecurity Bridge is broken into three sections. We talk about a particular area of cybersecurity. In the first section, we talk about the present. In the second section, we talk about the future. And the third is the Cybersecurity Bridge, where we talk about what we need to do to get from the present to the future. And with that, I'd like to introduce a new guest on my podcast, and that is MK Palmore, who is, let me read this, the founder and principal advisor of Apogee. Welcome. And MK, you've got a really stellar resume, so can you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
You bet. So first of all, John, thanks for having me on. MK Palmore, I'm a founder and principal advisor at Apogee Global RMS. We're a enterprise risk management firm serving SMBs and the global public sector. I started Apogee Global. I'll go sort of in reverse on my career stint, but after a 4-year stint at Google Cloud as a cybersecurity executive. Preceding that, I was a cybersecurity executive and advisor at Palo Alto Networks. And prior to my stint at Palo Alto Networks, I was a longtime government servant, 32 years in the U.S. federal government, which included 22 years as a special agent in the FBI. Had the unique opportunity in the FBI to lead a very large-scale cybersecurity investigative team for the last portion of my career, but I did all of those crazy and wonderful things that you get to do during a career in the FBI. And then prior to that, I served as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Marine Corps. So a lot of time in government service, and I've taken all of that, compacted it together with my enterprise experience, and now trying to service the SMB market with enterprise risk advice.
Well, appreciate that introduction, and thank you for your service. But right now, are you ready to play cybersecurity trivia?
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm leveraging your background here, and this might be a tough one, but I'm going to list a number of cyber incidents, and I want you to tell me which one the FBI did not participate in the investigation.
Okay.
So here's the list: the Morris Worm, the Kevin Mitnick manhunt, Moonlight Maze, Vax Buster, or Operation Fish Fry.
I'm going to go with Vax Buster.
You nailed it. You nailed it. So, and great job. I wasn't sure about that one. So that one actually took place in 1987, which coincidentally was the year I started in technology. But that was really a European operation because the hackers were German. And it was a compromise of the VAX VMS system that led to the compromise of NASA. So interesting. I learned about that by doing the research for this question, but I digress here.
All right.
Let's
well,
move
excellent.
on.
I'm glad I was lucky enough to get it.
Yeah, good job. So let me start with a general question. What's your thoughts on the state of the cybersecurity environment today?
Yeah, so I've been an observer and participant as a practitioner in the cybersecurity environment now for the better part of a decade, decade plus actually. And during that time, I will tell you that unfortunately, and of course, you know, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but the timing this week couldn't be more impactful in terms of my opinion on this. But you know, not a whole lot's changed in terms of the willingness of adversaries to use really innovative methods to gain access to enterprise environments and their ability to deliver exploits and to do the job that they are doing, which is to exploit environments, land, gain a presence, retrieve information, and then subsequently monetize it. They seem to be continually good at it. And unfortunately, on the practitioner side of the house, I am sure when they go through the postmortem of this event that's now dominating the news this week, when they go through the postmortem, they're going to find out that there was some violation of cybersecurity fundamentals that was not taken care of, things that likely could have been done had the organization gone through, those rudimentary sort of basic investigations on their own part to basically see if they're doing the basics and fundamentals. And I think that unfortunately, from that regard, no matter how many wonderful tools get invented and put into the market, no matter how much we as practitioners think that we're doing everything right, there's always time for additional inspection in terms of what it is that we've done and how we've prepared for adversarial activity. And that's essentially, quite frankly, the cause and the reason why I started the business that I started. So not a whole lot's changed when you really get down to it. I don't care how many reports you produce and read. The adversary has the upper hand. They're really good at what they do. And practitioners need to pay attention to the basics, and then we can talk about all of these really wonderful whiz-bang new technological advancements that are on the landscape.
In preparing for this interview, I did read that you are very forward on your opinion of avoiding the shiny object, or at least minimizing your attention on the shiny object and getting back to the basics. And you just talked about that, but can you be more specific about the basics you think people are not ignoring, but neglecting a little bit?
Yeah, and I don't think it's a neglect that's based upon willful intent to neglect these basics. I think what's happening is that the space has gotten so crowded with new technology, new ways to tackle this old and inherent problem that we've all inherited, that we tend to, I think, get beyond ourselves in terms of trying to do the new thing. I remember when, during my time at both Google and Palo Alto Networks, when we were all wrapped around the axle about the topic of zero trust. Now, zero trust had been around for many, many years. Prior to that, Google, the organization that I worked for at the time, had been a pioneer in implementation of zero trust principles. I had the benefit of working with John Kindervag, who is looked upon as sort of the academic father, if you will, of zero trust ideas and principles. And I saw organizations struggle, and they still struggle with adopting zero trust principles, which at the end of the day, I don't care how much technology comes out, those principles are good and should be thought of as first principles when it comes to the cybersecurity basics. But we get so attracted to tools, and tools become the dominant component of the conversation. It's not uncommon to walk into, a meeting with a CISO or see a briefing of a board of directors by technology stakeholders, and immediately they go into a list of tools that they would like to adopt over the course of the year. And tool adoption is not a strategic conversation. Tool adoption is an execution conversation as to how you're going to execute a strategy. And I just think that practitioners don't spend enough time talking about strategy, how they're going to get to where they want to be, and creating a vision for what the technology apparatus needs to look like in order to provide a safe and secure environment. And again, part of the reason why I established the business I did is because I want to help folks have those planning and conversations that right now I don't believe are happening with enough breadth and depth in the enterprise in order to be able to make a difference for organizations. The basics are as they've always been, which is, start with things like identity and access management. Start with things like, hey, are we chiefly planning to have cloud workloads, or are we going to remain on premise? And if we choose to go into the cloud, what's that going to look like? You can't frame up your cloud workloads in exactly the same way that you did your on-premise workloads. And so having those structural conversations around architecture, thinking about best practices, if organizations spent time just going through the CIS controls, they could do themselves wonders for whether or not they've actually prepared for something that might eventually happen. But again, I don't see that happening at wide scale, and that's part of the reason why we're going to market the way that we are.
I agree, and years of experience tell me you're absolutely right. Doing the basics isn't sexy, and we get caught up in that. But one school of thought, and especially because you focus on the mid-market, is this is too complex. I'm not in the business of cybersecurity. I'm in the business of retail or healthcare or what have you. Why don't I just outsource this to an MSSP? So what's the wisdom of that decision, and what's the risk of that decision?
Well, you're actually leading down the pathway to the conversations that I would likely have with any SMB, and that is, I absolutely believe they should partner with external organizations in an effort to scale their security teams and apparatus. I think it's fool's folly for a small to medium-sized business to think that they can build a security apparatus that's the same depth, scope, and capability as a large-scale enterprise. They're chasing a model that, fortunately or unfortunately, the Fortune 500 have an ability to build large scale security teams. They can invest money in having these things in house, like an in house SOC, an in house GRC team, a CISO with all kinds of deep expertise. Small and medium scale size businesses can't use that same model. They will never be able to catch the JP Morgan Chases of the world. So why would a small regional bank try and replicate the security model that some large scale financial services advisor has? They should think about partnering diligently with external organizations, and those external organizations, plus I would add a fractional model for security leadership, could allow them to scale in a way that doesn't require the same kind of financial investment that building those things in house would naturally incur. And I think that model, if I've been paying attention to the landscape, is really starting to gain steam. I know the light bulb goes off when I have conversations with organizations about this, and I will tell you, and maybe your observation's the same, there is a ton of security leadership that's on the bench right now who are willing and want to go into these fractional engagements, because people are getting away from this idea of signing up for 4 and 5 year stints as the CISO for even a small organization, large or small. People want to do project-based work right now because it allows them to have the kind of freedom in their professional development that they want, but still be able to deploy their skills on problems. They want to solve those problems, and then they want to move on to other problems.
It's interesting that you said that, because at RSA, I met with a number of CISOs who were out of work. And I was surprised by that, but their ability to be a virtual CISO or fractional CISO is out there. So yeah, I'd encourage smaller companies to do that too. But let's move on to the future. We've gone this far and we haven't talked about AI. And one of the trends I'm seeing is that organizations are abandoning MSPs or MDR vendors and looking at some of these agentic solutions. And I don't know whether that's the potential of the agentic solution or maybe some of the problems that they've had with MDR MSSPs. So are you seeing that, and what do you think of that trend in the market?
Yeah, I think that trend will land where it needs to land, which is you should be looking for an MSP or an MDR solution that combines and utilizes and leverages agentic capabilities. And so you still need to keep that. I think we're a long way away from the fully automated SOC, is the long and short of it. And so be careful about identifying an entity that claims that they could completely automate that process for you. I think that automation absolutely plays a role. I've talked frequently about how bullish I am about AI and what I think it's capable of doing, what it's able to do at the moment. But I think that organizations need to be diligent. There's still a necessary component of humans driving and guiding the usage of agentic capabilities, and I think that there's a balance needed when looking for external partners. So just be careful of the full automation play. Doesn't mean that there aren't signals out there that that's where we're headed, but we're certainly not there yet. So be competent in taking those steps towards identifying partners that can help you drive in that direction if that's where you're headed.
Sage advice, but I'm going to press you on something you said. You said you're bullish on AI, and I can tell
Yeah.
you, I went into RSA somewhat skeptical, but since then, in the 6 weeks since then, I've learned so much, and I'm bullish and scared. And so I'd like you to just expand upon your statement. What are you bullish on? What are you scared of?
I'm totally bullish because as a business owner, I am leveraging AI daily to help me get through and go through that checklist, apparently an unending checklist as a business owner of things that need to get done. Things that would have required, quite frankly, for me to hire someone even a year ago, I can do on my own with the enterprise level Claude instance sitting here on my desktop. I can do wonders with Claude Desktop that I previously would have needed to hire someone to do. And because of that, because of things like Claude, because of Gemini, because of these LLMs now and the agentic capabilities now baked into browsers, there's so much that you can accomplish now. And I just believe that that's only going to get better over time. It's still left to be seen whether or not it's going to get more secure over time. But I will tell you that from a capability standpoint, I am really impressed with what you're able to do right now out of the box with essentially enterprise level LLMs. And I'm bullish because I think it's going to help to solve problems. And certainly as a business owner, it's helping me to solve problems on a day-to-day basis.
And in the security domain, is there anything that you think stands out now? Is it vulnerability discovery? Is it triaging alerts? Is it workflow? Where do you see the AI value today?
Yeah, I mean, the AI value today is in, at the very least, curating all of the details, variables, and information in the SOC environment. So the SOC analyst doesn't have to go out and do that piece of work on their own. It's just time consuming. How many times have we heard stories, at least prior to this, of SOC analysts having like multiple browsers open on their screen, multiple domains that they're doing investigation and doing reporting in order to enrich information associated with a particular alert. Now, that time to at least understand the criticality of a potential alert has been reduced significantly. And now the analyst can go in, make a quick decision based upon the information that's been collated, and move on to the next thing. And because they're able to operate faster, that means that at the very least, they have now positioned themselves to be in a defensible position as it relates to adversarial activity. And because that's going to get better over time, I think that eventually we will find ourselves on par with the adversary. We're not quite there yet, but I think AI brings the promise of at least equalizing the playing field. And I think that's a promising thing for us to be working towards.
I agree. I think there's a gap because obviously the adversary, that's their job, is to poke holes in our defenses, and we still have other things to do. But let me turn this around because you do focus on risk. And when I was at RSA, I thought CISOs that I talked to were intrigued by the opportunities for AI in security, but they were concerned about managing AI risk outside of security. So understanding what people are doing, putting governance structures in place, putting the right policies in place and guardrails. So what are you advising your customers about there?
Yeah, so this is part of what we do. I think that organizations are struggling with this mightily. That's also happening in the public sector, which is part of the vertical that we service from our business line. What I would advise they do is to bring in outside help, quite frankly, because it's only through folks who are experienced with building the governance structures necessary to bring this kind of technology into the enterprise, organize it appropriately, make sure you have the visibility that you need, make sure that you establish the what I would call the advisory committees internally necessary to adopt technology, make sure you figure out what kind of risk it's going to bring to particular business operations, evaluate those things and understand them before you give the thumbs up that you can adopt a piece of technology, and understand how you're going to respond and potentially mitigate any kind of negative effects of the technology when it's in the enterprise. So what that means is that there's work involved in bringing this technology into the enterprise. The one end of the spectrum is make it available to employees, make it available to users, and then just lean into it. That's the end of the spectrum that folks are going to find themselves getting into trouble. The bottom end of the spectrum, and I saw this a lot, and I still think this is prevalent, organizations are hesitating so much that they're going to miss the opportunity to leverage some of this technology. And of course, as all things, there's a balance. There's a middle ground that includes bringing in potentially some outside help to help you get your hands wrapped around it, give you the governance structure that you need in order to adopt this technology and to be able to move forward. Develop a systematic approach of evaluating how you're going to adopt the technology and what the potential impact is to the enterprise. And you can safely bring this technology in, use it, leverage it, get benefit from it, but you got to take those necessary steps in order to be able to do that.
How do you communicate that to executives who may not understand the technology, but understand the opportunities that you talked about in running your own business? Like, holy cow, I can automate these tasks, or I can talk to customers in a different way. Let's just go as fast as we can. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, like with all things, you got to get in front of the right audiences, which is, part of what the challenge that I do. I try and take advantage of opportunities. I do some adjunct teaching associated with the California Chiefs of Police Association because I understand public sector entities are now struggling with this, and I can tell you that folks are hungry for guidance. And so folks like myself, people with this kind of experience, we need to get out on the landscape and talk as much as we can about how to diligently go about this process because there is a way to do this. The frameworks are being built literally as we speak. And it's just a matter of introducing those frameworks, introducing these methodologies to teams so that they can follow the steps and be judicial about their approach to AI adoption. So, for those of us that are comfortable being out on the speaking circuit and getting in front of and getting in as many rooms as you possibly can, we just need to raise our hands more and do a whole bunch more of this. Have conversations like we're having right now on this podcast. I try and do a little bit of that in the podcast that I champion, and just talk about it as much as you can. The minute someone hears it, the light bulb goes off, and then that leads to second and third conversations that eventually will lead to success.
Yes, and I do some speaking myself. In fact, I'll ask you a question. What's the most dangerous place on earth? I'm told it's the
Um,
distance between me and a microphone. So again, I
I love it.
digress. But let's go to the cybersecurity bridge. How we get from here to there. So in any technology transformation, whether it's going from the horse and buggy to the automobile, or whether it's the industrial revolution, there are jobs that are obsolete and there are jobs created. So just looking in a cybersecurity domain, what jobs, what cybersecurity jobs do you think will become obsolete, and what are the new opportunities that someone getting into the cybersecurity profession might want to try to take advantage of?
Yeah, you're probably not going to like my answer to this, but I'm going to lean on something that is now being said rather prolifically in the space, and that is AI is not going to take your job. Someone who understands and how to leverage AI is going to take your job, and I really believe that AI is a tool, and it's a great tool. And the more you lean into it, you understand how to leverage it as a component of your overall and complete tool set, the better off you are going to be. You can't ignore it and you can't assume that it's going to do everything. So, for new practitioners coming into the space, understand this technology, get those certifications, take courses, make sure you understand the basics from an academic standpoint, and then it'll give you some idea as to where this technology is headed, what the future capability sets look like. And so I believe that while there will still be a need for new entrants into the field, I think they will be entering the field at a different level. I think we're probably getting away from like the purely empty slate individual with just a degree, maybe in cybersecurity or some aspect of software development, joining an organization with no learnings and no capability sets, because AI definitely is impacting that bottom line sort of ground level opportunity for folks. Take GRC, for instance. Organizations that maybe had struggled with bringing someone in to actually help them document their processes, get a process work in flow. You can do most of that with AI right now. But I would argue that you need someone to still champion and sort of lead that effort. So that's going to be the individual who's your GRC specialist, but they will be using AI in all of its forms to help build the documentation, help keep you on pace, doing all of the compliance like things that need to be done. So there's an individual using AI as a tool that's probably going to be at the center point of any kind of GRC apparatus within an organization. Right now, that's a team of some size where folks have been historically. They had to go out and sort of hunt on the landscape for formatting and maybe even examples as to how to create these kind of documentation. You can turn to Claude right now, and with a really effective prompt, generate some comprehensive documentation that you can throw into the file, and it will survive the integrity test of an audit. So things are changing rapidly, and I think we all just need to be prepared for that. We all need to understand how to leverage these tools, and we all need to accommodate a changing environment, quite frankly, that we don't know the end state of yet. So you bring up an interesting point. There will be jobs that are created from this. Like, I don't even think we've really seen what that evolution is going to look like. And so there's a shifting of jobs, job roles, and responsibilities that will combine the growth of this technology with how humans adapt to it and how it is that we intend to leverage it in the enterprise environment. So I'm just anxious to see where some of this lands. I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see a ton of advancements and a ton of change. And I look forward to both participating in that and being witness to the change. And then guess what? I don't know about you, but I'm already thinking about what it's going to mean when quantum hits, probably in the next 5 to 8 years, what kind of massive impact that's going to have on everything as well.
I think of all of those, and by the way, I'm going to steal your line on it's not going to steal your job. Someone who knows it will steal your
Yeah.
job.
No, I mean, I stole that from whoever. I don't know who created that line, but it was very smart.
Yeah, it's called information arbitrage, I think.
Yeah.
It's just there's all that information and we just use it. Um, but I'm going to ask you about a specific role, and that is there a role for some type of either security A or AI security data scientist or data engineer? Because obviously the models are only as good as the data we put in. You have to get the data, you have to make sure there's no bias involved, you have to train the data. So is there that role that's emerging?
Yeah, I don't think data scientists are in danger of losing their job capabilities or job opportunities anytime in the near future. It's interesting. I have the need for having conversations with data scientists and the work that I do with Apogee, and I think that that's not only is it an interesting field. There's only a handful of folks that I've come across who really are great at understanding the potential and role of data scientists in a variety of projects and things that happen. And so I think that that role is safe. And I do believe that there is probably a need to have that person who understands how to bring all of this information together and best leverage it is a responsibility and role that will be in place for quite some time. And they will, of course, be using AI and help you to better understand how to leverage AI in terms of your massaging analysis of the data and then how to extrapolate points of interest out of the information and data as well.
So in our discussions about AI and these roles and things, at least because I'm the guy asking questions, I'm falling into the trap of assuming every company looks like Goldman Sachs or Walmart. So let's take this back to where you focus, and that's the mid-market. So given all of these changes, the rapid changes that are happening, what's your advice there, or what changes need to happen for security or for companies to um, really build their security programs effectively in the mid-market?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the point in the conversation where we were talking about partnering with external organizations. I think finding partners, identifying fractional leadership and support that can help you scale and grow your model, and the beauty of that model is that once you've identified a partner who really understands where you are and what you're trying to become and your needs, you can stick with those partners through thick and thin. The other side of the coin is in the fractional and partnership model. If they don't quite get there for you, you can move on to a different partner. And why that's different and why it creates your ability to be agile and flexible is because if you were to hire internally, how many stories have you heard in the business world about permanent hires that don't work out and how long they stay on board after the fact when you've already realized that they are not the right person for the role or the organization, the team that they're trying to build is not headed in the right direction. You can waste and spend a lot of money on that in the FTE world, as opposed to doing the fractional piece. If the fractional leadership team doesn't work out, guess what? You swap them out for someone else that likely fits the bill. And I know that sounds like a lot, especially for my risk leaders and change management teams. But I do believe that that's where the SMB space can really, really accelerate their own growth by looking at those models and then again doing the diligence and homework to identify those partners that can be adjuncts to their apparatus and again help them move a whole lot faster in the business markets.
All right, I have a final question that I ask every guest, but before I do that, I have one question. Just given your experience, I want to ask it. I know we could go on for hours about this subject, but given your experience, knowledge of cybersecurity, and experience in the federal space and working with federal customers, what should the role of the federal government be, or what should the federal government do to help organizations like the ones that you work with that it's not doing today?
Yeah, you know what? The federal government struggles with its role in terms of how best to help organizations and impact business in a positive way. Whether it's information sharing, how much do they need to lean in on getting out and helping organizations posture themselves? I think the struggle in the information sharing realm has always been that the time to product. It takes a long time internally in the government to release research products, to release information that might be helpful to organizations. And I think unless and until they solve that problem of speed to product, speed to production, it will continue to be a challenge. The government's got great information. They have a point of visibility, quite frankly, that no one else has in the industry or vertical. And I found that over time, when you combine their research along with private sector research, so it's those government and private sector partnerships that really, really are able to accelerate information sharing and knowing. I think, and as I talk out loud about it, that's the key. Government partnering with private sector and together bringing information to the business markets that can be helpful to them from a cybersecurity standpoint is absolutely the way to go. Private sector solves the problem of the speed to production. Government has a unique view and visibility into information that can be helpful. And if you can combine those two efforts and really get information out that can be helpful to organizations, I think you can solve a lot of problems on the landscape.
That's great. And just to add one thing, I just finished the book Battlefield Cyber, which really does a good job of articulating the problem we face, both the government problem, but also the private sector problems of adversaries, nation state adversaries from countries like China and Russia.
Yeah.
But also it does a good job of making some suggestions on government policies and government changes that would help. But we're almost out of time. But I ask this question of all my guests, and that is, what's the one piece of advice you'd give our audience that they should know? And let's make it specific to mid-market audience right now. What's that one piece of advice that really stands out for you?
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for outside help. I think one of the things that I've observed of our industry, and when I say our industry, I mean technology leaders, is that there's a reluctance to look for external help. The external view is the thing that's going to help you to understand what the adversary sees, and I think you can only achieve that by bringing in external help to get you to where it is that you would like to be. Doesn't mean that you're not capable internally. It just means that you have blind spots internally that are natural. It is a natural part of human nature to essentially give yourself the benefit of the doubt in areas where you probably should not. And it's only through that external view that you're really going to understand essentially what the adversary potentially sees when they come at you. Look for external partners. It's not all bad out there. Do your due diligence, identify partners that externally can help you, and look to those partners to help you drive where it is that you would like to be. And far too often, I've seen technology leaders give the nod that, oh, we have it all handled. We don't need any external help. And I guarantee you that was the mantra of that organization that I was referencing earlier, that is finding themselves on the blotter this week for a significant cybersecurity incident.
Yes, and I'm a true believer of the network effect. The more people that you reach out to, the more you learn. And cybersecurity professionals are very good in terms of sharing information amongst the community. So I think that's important too.
When you seek it and when you ask for it, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, what a great guest you've been. I appreciate your time, MK, and thanks again for being a part of my podcasting experience.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, John.
All right. Great. And to the audience, thanks again for listening. And I'll see you again in a couple of weeks with another episode of the Cybersecurity Bridge podcast.